Jerry Eisenhower here, and I want to welcome you to this month's webinar for the National Chimney Sweep Guild. Hiring and moving people from being a raw recruit to an effective and efficient and also profitable member of your team is a very difficult task in today's world. And moving this person could well cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So, in order to get this done properly and get the results you're looking for, it's adamantly important that not only do you select the right person, but you also can assess this person's skills and their behavior patterns in order to ascertain if they're the right person. Do they fit the position that you want to put them into? So, in this month's webinar, you're going to hear myself and Brandy Biswell ask a lot of questions of Cheryl Eisenhower. Cheryl is a level 3 certified DISC assessor. And what that means is she assesses people's behavior personalities and to see if they're going to fit the position that they've been hired for. And you'll even hear some of the profiles that we've developed from our research. So listen in. We appreciate you joining us, and we hope this is a time of value for you. Again, this is a presentation from CVC Success Group that we do every month for the membership of the National Chimney Sweep Guild. Appreciate you joining us. Listen in. You're going to hear some really good information to put to work in your recruiting processes. So, Cheryl, I'm going to take the first shot at you. Okay. So, here's the whole thing. Doing these DISC assessments, is this something you've just done a few of? Or how many, since you started doing this, how many individuals have you DISC assessed at this point in your career?
I actually looked to figure that up last night because I was curious. As of today, I've done 463, not including the 10 or 12 I did during my training.
Okay, so excuse me, you've done 463 of these, and these are for companies that we work with, or some companies outside, such as you've done it for stone companies, you've done it for distributors, and different types of things is what you've done. So, Brandy, what would you ask Cheryl at this point?
Yeah, I guess could you just explain to us a little bit about like your education, like what you went through to become DISC certified? I know you've been all the way through the entirety of the certification, all 3 levels or however you want to call them. And I think that's very important. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I know you've shown me one of your books and it's like huge.
Believe me, there's a lot to learn. I've probably at this time got over 60 hours of actual training, and then not including monthly trainings that I go through. You'll never learn it all. There's no way. Even my trainers said they find out something new every time they do an insights. But yeah, there's 3 sections. It's your DISC plus, and then your advanced insights. It tells you who, what, and why you're that way. The ones you get on the internet is the who. It kind of gives you a little bit of background about you, but if you go all the way into the advanced insights, it digs into telling you why you're the way you are.
Okay.
The books are thick.
Okay, so let's stay with that thought for a minute. So you went through level 1, and level 1, you're probably just looking at that front page of the first part of the report. Would I be correct about that?
Pretty much. So you kind of get a touch on a little bit farther in. It's kind of they wet your whistle while you're there, but most people never make it past level 1.
Okay, so there's a lot of people that could be saying I'm DISC certified to assess people, but they've only passed the level 1 part. How many hours did it take you to do level 1, Cheryl?
That was about 6, 7. Wasn't a long. That was not one of my longer courses.
Okay, so about 10% of the training you went through was to get you to level 1. Am I hearing this correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so then in level 2, what do you concentrate when you're in the level 2 training you went through?
The level 2 takes you on it. It supersedes the regular DISC. Then it takes you more into the values and into the what, not the who, the what. and it gets you through that. Now you can actually stop there. Honestly, when I send someone their disc back, I never send them level 3, because what they need to see at that moment is what's shown in level 1 and 2. So with that being done, but it gives me insights of how to help them with the first 2. Unless you know the third part, you don't have the whole picture. You've kind of got the canvas and you've kind of got the sketch, but it's not been painted yet, if that's a good way to explain it.
Okay, so then you go through to level 3. And level 3 is where you're really digging deep. You're getting into the personality. You're getting into communication styles, how to talk to them, not talk to them. So by the time you've went through these 3 levels, would it be safe to say you can almost read that person's mind?
I've been told that more than once. Okay. In fact, we had one of our clients, and I won't mention the name, but I remember he came back to you and told you, it's just like she's in my mind. And I've had people tell me that before. It's a good feeling, but the feeling's good because I know that it gives them some insights into their mind, not just because I'm there.
Gotcha. So Brandy, what's your next question for Miss Cheryl?
Yeah, part of it's more of a comment. I remember the first time I was really extremely blown away. I had hired an office manager and told you nothing about her, but I wanted to get her disc assessed. And then you were kind enough to kind of debrief me on it after she took it. And you said, she's suffered some sort of trauma in her life. There's been some sort of trauma, or she was abused or something. And all of that was true, but I hadn't told you any of that. But you could see that through her disc, which was just incredible. Talk to me about, because I know when I've taken the disc, and I'm sure I'll get everything wrong on the verbiage, but I've taken the regular one, but then I've taken the values. Can you talk to me about that?
The values. I'll tell you, can I just start with the slides and move up to there? And I think you can answer more questions.
Well, that's where I was going to go next. So everybody knows Cheryl's going to take you inside of a disc assessment, and she's going to show you some things. And some of these are going to be on complete companies. In other words, she's going to show you where everybody in that company sits at. And that's where it comes so valuable to know putting the right person in the right seat. So Cheryl, there's your screen. It's like the floor is yours.
Like I say, I'm not going totally in depth. I just want people to have a little bit of overview. These are 2 entirely different people. Be honest, the first people's me. The one with the real high red is me. The one to the right is a lady that's in my office, okay? Or was in my office. She's no longer there. But the colored bars are your core, and it's the way you're born. Now, the gray bars is how you were altering on this particular time in my life. It works on that particular time. So you alter to become what you need to be in a situation, in the job that you're in. If you don't like numbers and they put you in a accounting seat, you've got to alter it. But you can alter, but always be aware. And I tell everybody this, always be aware that if you get angry or scared, you'll go right back to your core, no matter how good you are at covering it up. Now, if I stick to my core, people basically wouldn't talk to you. They'd be doing the cross sign in front of us. And if it makes anybody any more interested, the other 2 people on here are high Ds also. And God was really good because at this point in time, 13% of people that have taken this are Ds. He wanted to be really nice to the rest of the world. But your D is your demanding or your decision making. Now, high or low is not bad. Nothing in the middle is bad. It's just the way you are. I fly by the seat of my pants. I'm a 99. I don't take a lot of times to make decisions. Thank goodness I've been very lucky in my lifetime, or this may not be a good disc for me. I've been very lucky in the decisions I've made, but have they been thought through to the extent? No. The one on the right is going to take a lot of time to decide. They're going to mull it over. They're going to make sure that the I's are crossed and the T's. And that's why I need them as an alternative to myself, because I need them to do the minutia that I don't have or want to do. And then your yellow bars, that is your communications. Anything above 50 is fairly talkative. They're fairly open to people. They don't mind being the first people to walk up to you and shake someone's hand. Like a CSR, you want them to be a higher I because you want to have them be able to talk to people. But you don't want to have them blowing it out the top either, because they don't know when to be quiet. Now, the person in my office is not a CSR. So I don't need a high I in there. I need someone that actually is a quieter person, and they have time to think, and they can work, and they can do the minutia, the paperwork, the bookwork. Your S, that's your stability, or another word, partly speed. As you see there, the higher you are, and it's not slower as in running, it's being more methodical, and as they're doing in the D, thinking through things and not rushing themselves. Me, on the other hand, again, I fly by the seat of my pants. So mine's a lot lower. I've got 10 projects started at once. They'll all get done, about half of them by my secretary. Okay. I love making the project up. I'm not as good as she is at finishing them. And then when you get over to the C, that works with your perfectionism. If I have got a gas installer, I have a lot of people on here that are watching their chimney service, or gas techs. You want your gas techs extremely high in a C because you want them perfect at everything they do. Now, that's just kind of touching on it, but that shows two total extremes. Now, other people fit in the middle here somewhere. Rarely do I see two exactly alike. Honestly, you have to have some exact or it wouldn't work. And then, excuse me, let me change my screen. After we do the core value, the core, which is actually this is the values page. It tells you how you are at a particular time, basically. Now, the colored bars in the other slide rarely ever change. Unless something catastrophic happens to you, you'll be the same way in 10 years. And the gray bars, they adapt to create the person that has to be there in a particular situation. Takes weeks and months for those to change, but they will alter as you change in life. These can change relatively fast, not in a moment, but in a couple days. They give you the altruism, that's your work to home balance. Again, this is mine. Jerry and I both are without children at home. There's just he and I. He's a workaholic, so I spend a lot of time working. I'm not, I'm through decorating my house. I'm through doing a lot of things. The grandchildren are grown, so work is what I do. So that's why I'm as low as I am. Then you've got your economic. That's money and it's competition. I'm very competitive. I used to be the one that I took before this. I've taken several. The one that I took 2 years before this, I was like a 90-something or blue. I tried to find it, but I just picked up the last one I had. But I'm not dealing directly with my business anymore, so I don't have to do anything except watch the bottom line. And I've passed the years of playing softball, so my competitiveness has dropped down. Now, your individualistic is how you are with yourself or with someone else, and how it's balanced. The squares that you are seeing, that's 68% of the people across the United States. So I'm ahead in both of those. The red is your political. That's not politics. That is leadership. If you're going to hire somebody high in your company, you need their leadership to be high. So That's one thing I watch. Altruist, that's your trust factor. It's not that I don't trust people, and most people are not this low. Something could have happened that day when it was going on that we could have been going through a rough time. Again, these will change up. I like taking one of these about every 2 years. It's good for me. Then you have your regulatory. How much do your employees or yourself need to know about the procedures and protocols? Any employee that you have needs to be high in this area because you want them to follow your lead. And then theoretical, that's what you read. Do you read? I can't tell you exactly what you can read for unless I know a little bit about you and I can narrow it down. I am not a book reader as far as fiction. In fact, I'm not really sure I've never finished more than 2 or 3 fiction books, but I do a lot of reading on business. But that's where my interest lies. And I know I'm rushing through this, but I know they have other questions they want asked, and I want to get through them. Now, this is a team of 28 that I did. We went in, it was a sales team, it was a stone company, and we took all of their salesmen and brought them into this, and I did a company chart on them. And it places, after I did their list, I did the company chart. So I can see what areas the company needs to hire in at this point. So these are just basically the salesmen. I pulled a lot of the office staff off. That's why there's none over in the task side to mount anything. But salesmen need to be people oriented more so than tasks. They need to have that connection with people. Now, if I'm looking for a CSR person, I need them more over into the task side where the one sits there. But that's why I enjoy doing the company ones. It really tells you why things are not happening in your company like they should be. And then these are the values. This particular company, this again is the Stone Company. Most of them are in the economic. And the reason they make such good salesmen is because that's one thing that they value, and it sits in their value. The monetary part is their sales. They have the knowledge in the other. There's good readers, but the majority of them fall into the economic. Now, Jerry, that's basically all the slides. If you would like to unshare, and we can go back to questions.
Yeah, hang on one second. Let me take the sharing down here. So we're all back together now. So I felt like, Cheryl, while you were talking, the best thing to do, Brandy and I went off camera right there. We were able to see it, that kind of stuff, and listen in. So as you look at that, this is part of the whole ball game. Cheryl, to be able to assess this information, you just went through a lot of different things. So how do you learn? How do they teach you this? Is this based on data? Is it research? How do they come up with where people need to be?
This is all data. It's strictly data. The DISC began back in the time of Hitler, actually. Some of the questions still relate back to that era. They're more crude, if that's a good word, than what we would have done today. But if you can look at the crude side, you can dig deeper within yourself. But it's all data. It's all fine-tuned. A lot of the questions look like they repeat each other, but what they're doing, they're fine-tuning in to find exactly where you are. And the only thing that can make this test go wrong is if you just don't try and you don't answer, because it's your answers that makes the graft. And I can't understand why anyone wouldn't want to do it perfectly so they could know exactly who, what, and why they were.
Okay. So Brandy, your turn. Turn your mic back on.
Well, I know that I've had an employee fail the DISC, if you will. My husband won't take it. I tell him it's because I think he's a serial killer and it'll show. But why would someone fail the DISC? Why would they have to take it over again? You kind of touched on that just a minute ago, but if you could go into more depth.
A lot of times they're in a hurry. This needs to be taken when when you're not stressed out, when you're not being disturbed. I mean, once you go in, you can't come out without starting over. And some people just don't care. It's a slide over process. You slide the answers over and they're ordered in certain ways. And some people, I saw one guy one time, he just started at the top and slid everything over. And they're just doing it because their boss made them do it or something like that. And what they don't realize, if they really, and I'm going to use the word screw up because it's intentional screw up, you look schizophrenic. In fact, I had one probably about a year ago that I sent back. You need to have him do it. You have two decisions. You either have him do it over and do it correctly, or I would fire him at the right now. He looked like you think Jeremy Muppet, but it's all in what the person wants to answer. I mean, you can't manipulate like you think you could. I've seen people they're wanting a job in the management part of the business. So they're trying to look like a leader. And okay, when you answer it here and you answer it here and it collides, it's not right. And you can't manipulate it to a leader. In fact, you'll pull yourself off. So answer them correctly. Even if you don't have high leadership marks, anybody can be a leader. It just it's harder for some people. Some people just naturally do it. Some people have to work at it.
Right. And Cheryl, one of the things that we learned when you started doing this, it actually answered questions for both myself and Brandy because we both took the test. And like you said earlier, all three of us are what's classified as high D personalities, which just like you said, a very small percentage of the population is a high D. But one of the things is, and Brandy and I both do this, and you do this also, we actually work very hard to suppress this personality. And by doing that, I'd always wondered why every time that I do a presentation that I'm physically exhausted at the end of it. And Brandy said the same thing happens to her. When you come off of the front of the room, it's almost like I got to go to sleep. I got to go to bed. I am physically exhausted. But that's from holding. And this is what people can do. It's like if you have a very high D personality, which can really blow people away, that's what you've got to do is learn to suppress that down. Am I correct in my assessment?
You're very correct. I mean, if in the first chart that I saw, if there's a 30 point difference, that gives you're tired. You're moving, you're trying to adapt into something you're not. I mean, I've pretty much got my speech where I've adapted it to be slower all the time. I mean, a normal D, we talk at a very high rate of speed. We're very bullet pointed. We don't discuss much. We don't listen well. So all three of us have learned how to slow our voice down so people could halfway understand what we say. And we've also learned to listen because that's what we have to do in this profession that we're in. But is it easy? No. I mean, but you can adapt to do that. But yes, I get tired. I mean, I do the same thing when I'm on stage. Even though I have learned to adapt, I still get tired because it's not what's in my core.
Correct. In our group coaching calls, when we're doing our group coaching, this is one of the things. And Brandy, you probably go through this just like I do. It's like you want to just blurt it out. You're sitting here. And in our process, in our group coach, one of us facilitates that meeting. So the other one has got to hold their hand up to speak. And it's like, let me talk. This is eating me alive. So Brandy, next one to you.
Yeah, you're right, Jerry. I'm like always trying to hold back. I need practice on that. And first of all, I feel very fortunate. I feel like, wow, we're pretty special that we're the 13%. I didn't know that until today. Also, going along with the D, Cheryl, that you talked about and what Jerry talked about getting tired, I really struggle with somebody's telling me a story and if you can't get it done in 30 seconds, I tune out. And then if I'm composing an email, I have to be really careful. And I actually had a client that was doing this, and I gave her some tips and tricks on how I've taught myself over the years, because I just want to get to the point. But people will read that and think that it's rude. And I mean nothing by it. I just don't want to sit there and compose a long email with all kinds of pleasantries. So my next question is, so I know in my office we have a D, 2 I's, an S, and a C. And I think it works wonderfully. We have very little to no drama. What do you think is like the ideal mix for an office? Like, should you have all of one? Is it good to have a mixture of them?
All of one ends up with drama because, well, let me rephrase that. It depends what they're all one of. Okay. If you put 4 of us in an office, how long do you think we would last? Okay. If I put 4 high I's in an office, nobody would get anything done. They'd be at the water cooler, Jack and Jaws all day long. And so probably have music going and dancing. So that's how it goes. If you've got all high S and C's, they all sit in their desk and they think all the rest of them are mad at them. So they don't talk to them. So the drama is different in that area. They don't say anything. So you've got a good mixture. The happy one keeps the quiet one moving, and it just kind of rolls on. It's like when I showed you the 2 separate discs of mine, I needed her to take the notes that looked like somebody couldn't read them that I wrote and make something legible out of them, because you really don't want to see my note taking. It's not what you consider professional, and it's definitely not particularly good. So I need that counterbalance. I think we all do. It's not so much at home. I think you need to be a little more equal at home, not the yin yang thing. But in an office, you've got to have somebody has got to do the minutia. Somebody's got to make the decisions. Okay. And so the more diversified you can get it, the better.
That's my notes. Like I do like more like mind mapping. They're awful.
Yours are good compared to mine.
Right. But this brings to mind a question for Brandy. Brandy, when you implemented the software, you had one that was just super in this new software. What is she? What's her disc reading? What is she high?
She is an off the charts I. Like she's literally like 99 I. Okay. Now my assistant, my executive assistant, she's an I, but she's like her C is just right there below the I. And I remember before I made her my assistant, I called Cheryl and had Cheryl just take a look at her disc to see like, hey, do you think she would be a good fit for this position? And so I kind of like that she has that high C too, because that attention to detail is important to me since I don't have it.
Right. So you use this actually to move a person inside of the company that worked for you to take a very important task, because we were on you. Brandy, you got to have a personal assistant. Brandy, you're driving yourself crazy. So it took one day and you moved on it. And first you went looking virtually somebody outside, but then you decided to use one of your girls. So you actually used the disc profile to help you select the right person. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we use it. We even, Cheryl, I probably gets tired of hearing me say page 21 and 22, but they're like my favorite pages because they tell you like how to work well with Brandy and not what to do to Brandy. And so in my office, we actually all share each other's discs, so that if there is some conflict or we're wondering like why that person is the way they are, we can go back and look at that. And I think that helps keep the drama down as well.
You know, as you said that, I was thinking of a client. I want him and somebody on his staff that maybe that's what we got to do with the two of them, is learn each other's communication style, if you understand what I'm saying. And I'll guarantee you what I just said, you knew exactly what I'm talking about. So Cheryl, I'm going to ask you about a couple positions. Now, you know, we need to go into the values to really hone this down. But if I was going to hire a general manager for Jeremy and Brandy's business, Flues Brothers, what do I want? What's the personality that would jump out at you?
Again, I'm going to pull this strictly off the D or off the back or regular disc part. Again, would I go in a lot deeper than this? But if I was just looking, you said a general manager.
Yes.
I would want a fairly high D because I would want him to be able to make decisions. I would want a fairly high I because he needs to be able to talk to his staff. He needs to explain to them what's going on. And then needs a mid S and C. He doesn't need to know all the idiosyncrasies, for lack of a better word, but he needs to know enough that he can work with his people.
And
But he's kind of a balance.
So when you say that, they would be in that 50 range, 45, 55 in there.
Floating in there.
Gotcha. Now I want to hire a CSR, a dispatcher in my office. What's this person's predominant behavior pattern?
I would probably say low to mid D, well over a 50 I because she needs to be able to talk. I need her high enough on the S and C that when she is explaining to a customer, she's explaining what she's supposed to and not what she thinks.
Gotcha. Now I want a tech, and this tech now is not going to be selling. He's going to do repair work. He's going to fix chimneys. He's going to lay brick. He's going to reline chimneys. What am I looking for with this guy?
I would balance him with a lower D, a lower I, a higher S, and a higher C.
Gotcha. Now I want a super sales guy. What am I looking for?
Super sales needs to have a fairly high I or D.
Okay.
And a long day. He needs to have a fairly high D because he needs to be demanding enough when he talks to be able to talk like he knows what he's talking about. He needs an above 50 I because he has to communicate. The S and C, basically, they can be fairly low. And the reason I say that is because he doesn't need to know. He needs to know the knowledge. He doesn't need to know the details.
Gotcha. Now I want someone to run my warehouse. I want everything kept in order. I want my ordering done right. I want everything like this. What's this guy's makeup?
He needs to make some decisions. Below 50, but not much on the D because he's going to have to make daily decisions when he makes his calls. I can be fairly up or down as long as it's not lower than 30 because he's not going to be doing that much communication except for ordering things. But he does his S needs to be fairly high because he needs to be more, I'm going to use the word laid back. He don't need to get in a frenzy to go pick up his supply or his stuff. He needs to be sure he's got it correct, which puts in a fairly high C.
Okay. But in addition to just looking, if someone's just looking at that front chart and says, hey, this is a high D, high I, low S and C, he ain't going to work or he's going to work. There's more to this in what you're going through with the values and the insights. Am I correct?
Very much so. And I'm going to use myself. Everybody saw my disc. Very high D, high I, S, and C. I should be a cold-hearted pain in the butt. Okay? I should be. But I took care of my parents as they aged. I took care of your parents as they aged, along with you. And I think I did pretty good with it, which would not fit just my disc. But bringing my values into it, the way I cared for people and things, they came in my values. That I was able to, like you are more demand. Even though our D's are equal, you're much more demanding than I am. I am more persuasive, and that comes from my values. I might tell somebody to do something, but I'll do it in a way that basically they think it's their own idea.
Right. Because both of you and I make buying decisions very quickly. I mean, it's very quickly. We either like it, we don't. If we go shopping for furniture, we probably got a sofa picked out in 20 minutes. Here's a credit card. Let's move on with life. Does that describe me and you pretty well?
Me to a T. I told somebody the other day, I'm in my 70s and I have never test driven a car that I bought.
Mm-hmm. So, Randy, next question to you. I wanted to go over all those jobs that this says there as far as that goes. That's why I want to keep that together. So back to you. What's your next one?
Well, it's funny. I just had to look up. I love criminal shows. I know you guys do too. I know you watch them in the evening. So I Googled what is a psychopath on the disc, and it says it's a combination of a high D and a high C. So now I'm like, great, I got to go see if I'm a psychopath.
No.
So what do you have? Well, I guess so. I recommend the disc to our clients, and I'm happy to read off of the paper, but I don't ever want to get into any more than that because I just don't know enough about it. That's where you come in. And so how important is it to have somebody that is trained and has all these hours in disc interpreting those results versus like me, who's had no training in it, and I could just be making things up?
The thing is, after you've been through the training, you see things other people don't. You see the whys and the what, okay? You see how things intermingle together. I mean, like I said earlier, if I just look at the pictures of mine, I had no right having children almost. I had no right trying to raise them for sure. And I had no right I'm using the word raising parents. So, but if you look at it, and it almost looks like things counteract till you start digging deeper. And so to just read it and say, oh, that's me. And then what gets me worse than everybody else, they say, I'm a D. No. You're a high D. You're a combination of all the disc and all the values. And so with being a combination, you can be a high D. I'm a high D, I'm a high I. So, which I'm a DI. That's how that works. And the thing is, that's not how I perceive to people now. So if you just look at the pictures and think you've got it pugged, that pulling like I did earlier, just pulling off what and if, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that's down below that.
Right. So, Cheryl, I got two questions for you on this. Is there such a thing as a double D?
No, not unless you got boobs.
Okay, that's what I mean. That would only be in a woman's breast size. There is no such thing as a double D personality. Would that be correct?
If there is, I've never seen one because there's only one on the chart. Got
you covered. So here's the real question. One of the things that you do is a person takes a disc. Once they take the disc, this is done electronically, and you have the results within a few seconds of them mashing the button because it's all computerized, comes to you. Then your process is you review the findings of the disc. You come up with a conclusion of this person's behavior, personality, where they will shine, where they'll have problems. Are they coachable? Will they have to be restrained? Will they have to be pushed? All these different things. So after you've done that, you have what's called a debriefing. And a debriefing is where it may be with one person about himself, or it could be with an entire team about his team, or it could be with the entire team in a big room talking about this, which I've seen you do all three of them. So tell us what the word debriefing means. What is debriefing? Because that's what Brandy's got to have, even though she can look at it, just like she said. And it's not that Brandy is not educated, but she's not been trained in how to do this. So explain to our listeners what's involved in the debriefing.
Several facets. Number one, if you're doing it with a person, as if I were doing it with Brandy, I would be more or less showing her what I see, but then also showing her how to read it, how she can see what's going on, how things counterbalance out. Also asking, is there something here that doesn't look right? So that way, if she has seen something during that period of time that's like, oh no, that's not me, then we can dig deeper and go back into it from the values and the insights and all and bring it back up. If I'm doing it with a owner of a business and I'm doing it with his, on his team, I want him to be able to see where as in the chart that I showed earlier, where his team's positioned. I have one client that the whole staff is in one quarter. So it's really their communication is not working between them. And it gives them an idea of, okay, the one prior, I know I've got control.
Yeah, you have to back up your slides.
This one, I'm just going to leave it in this view if it's okay
Okay.
with everybody. If like this one here, they have a lot here, which is good. This is a sales team. This is where I want my sales team. This is where when I went before the board there and was talking about the team, this side of this half of it is more people orientated. This half is more task orientated. People above here are extroverts. People below are introverts. So right here is his top salesman. I can tell you they're in this quadrant because they're open to people. They can talk. They're very active, but it takes this group is a little more. They do more of the detailed things. It depends on where you're at also. Put them up in New York, you need a salesman sitting right here. If I've got them in Wyoming, I can have them sitting more down here because that's the culture that the people that you're working with. But it works really well. In fact, with this team, I was actually without ever seeing or knowing to tell them which were their top 3 salesmen, just by knowing the location they were in, because location would also give a geographical dollar difference. I knew their location and I knew their disc, and we were able to pick out the top 3.
Yeah, and I remember that's the ownership of that company. When we met in their board meeting in their conference room, they were blown out of the water when you were able to tell them the names of people that were weak, the people that were strong. It just blew them away how you knew these people and what they could do. And so that goes to Brandy. My next question, Brandy, when you and I took our disc, which was way back when she started, 460 some ago, okay, because we were in the first bunch. What did it tell you about Brandy?
I mean, it was scary. Like, it was just scary, like how well it knew Brandy. But it also confirmed for me the reasons I do a lot of the things I do and the way that I am. So that made me feel a little bit better, I guess. But it's crazy to do it. I mean, and even like when I give it to my team, before they take it, I'm like, just prepare yourself. It's going to be crazy. It's just going to read your mind. And I don't think they believe me. And then they're reading it and they're like, holy cow.
Right. So Cheryl, last thing in here, it tells you the communication, and Brandy said it a while ago. When someone takes a disc, it's going to tell you how to communicate with that person and how not to communicate. Would that be true?
It does within every disc, and it depends on how much information is on yours, which page it's on.
Okay.
This is the only page in that disc that is not for you.
Yeah.
That page is for everyone else. My dentist, they were doing this prior to me getting there, and they have a large firm. And if they have a new hire, they've taken the disc before they go in. Everyone in the office has to read their disc, and she has to read everyone else's. Then they're laminated and they're put on a ring on the wall. And the answer is, if you've got 2 of them arguing, go read. Because 95% of the problems nowadays is communication and how people want to be talked to. I mean, I don't have a big space. You know what I mean? You can be up close and personal and talk to me as long as your finger's not in my face. But you take an S and a C, they have to have a space between you and them. They don't like to be touched. They don't like to have an arm put around them. I mean, I'm from the South. We're huggy kissy kind of people. And so I'm on the other side of the spectrum, and my disc tells me that exactly. But if you go up to a C and put your arm around her or him, you'll feel them draw up. Take it down, bad thing to do. And so you can, I'm going to go one step farther here, Jerry. You can learn to read the people you're selling to. You can also learn to read their emails and tell how they are. You can talk to them on the phone. It takes a little practice.
Well, that's some of the classes that we've actually done, that you've actually taught people and shared them how to read other discs, how to read your customers' discs, how to do that. So we're coming up short on time here today. Brandy, you got one more you want to ask?
My last one would be, are we attracted to, like I'm a D, am I attracted to other Ds over a C, or do we like opposites?
Well, I had it put this way to me years ago. Many times we attract the opposite. It's the yin to fill your yang. So you get married, and then you spend the next 40 years trying to make them just like you. So you figured it depends whether you want it good now or good later.
Very good.
But when you look at it, the three of us, I think we have a mutual respect that's very unequaled. I think we respect each other's words, and we're all high Ds. And I think a lot of it is just simply having a respect for the opinions of others. I mean, Brandy, how many times have we talked that you and I have vastly different opinions about many things, but we can talk about it and we respect the other one's feelings?
That's every day.
It is. It's every single day. So anyway, we hope you've enjoyed today's segment. What we try to do is help you to determine what your profile for hiring is, where you can put together a plan of putting people in the right seat, just like Brandy, when she wanted to move one of her people on her staff to the personal assistant. To having this profiling and able to determine that this person would succeed was key in there, and she's doing a great job as part of the process.